So something happened this weekend that went largely unnoticed by the press because maybe at the surface it just seemed too small. It didn't seem that significant. But based off of people I've talked to in different aspects of the industry that are shocked because this appears to be a first, and if it holds, it could establish a precedent to have a very big impact on live music. And interestingly enough, it's also directly relevant to the series of conversations that I've been moderating across social media over the last couple of weeks regarding bands who are out there touring with a lineup that's largely different than what we typically associate with the classic lineup associated with a lot of the hit music. And what I'm talking about is this weekend, Burton Cummings, the voice, the classic voice, the songwriter behind many of the Guess Who's music, appears to have found a way to scare the venues enough to get them to cancel the Guess Who's shows. So how did he do this? How did he pull off what a lot of songwriters have tried unsuccessfully to do themselves? I mean, if you've followed me for some time, then you may have watched the series of posts I had put out last year on Little River Band and how the founding songwriters, the founding voices, have tried for years to stop the current lineup of Little River Band from playing their classic music. It's just not something that is easy to do for a songwriter. Now, if we're talking about music being played on TV through sync licensing, songwriters do have controls there. The Little River Band was able to prevent, or the founding songwriters were able to prevent Little River Band from playing the music on TV, but there's really nothing they can do to stop somebody from playing the music on stage. The best effort is just to make sure that the songwriters receive royalty payments. And the way that generally works is whether we're talking about a large amphitheater or a local restaurant, they typically pay a licensing fee, a performance licensing fee to a performing rights organization, a PRO like BMI or ASCAP. And these organizations collect these fees and then they use them to pay out royalties back to the songwriters. And there's a lot of steps involved, but that's pretty much in a nutshell. The PROs are not in the business to tell a band what song they can or cannot play. They just make sure that the venues are paying a fee so that the songwriters can receive their royalties. So when I saw the announcement, knowing this, the first thing that came to mind was, well, I know that Burton probably didn't find a way to stop the Guess Who from playing their music, especially when you go into Songview and you take a look at the music. You can see that the Guess Who is listed as one of the performing entities. So how did he do this? Well, I don't know the truth, but I do know there's a couple ways it could happen. One, I don't know, maybe the venue I thought was behind on their payments. Maybe they weren't paying licensing fees at all and they got busted and just out of fear said, you know, it's not worth it. We're not going to do this tonight. The other option, which somebody close to one of the venues shared with me, and I don't know if this is true, but it would make sense, is that Burton has started to pull his music out of the PROs. He's taking over licensing himself, which would then actually give him the control to call up a venue and say, you don't have the rights to have my music played in your venue, and if you want to do so, here's some just outrageously large fee that you're going to have to pay me to have that happen. That is something, if that's the case, that's actually pretty scary. One, it sets a precedent that other bands can now start to follow. So you'll probably start to see other bands, the music fall silent in a live setting. You may see restaurant owners just stop hosting live bands altogether because it's just not worth the risk that they have a band come in, play a song that's not covered by a PRO anymore. And word gets back to the artist or the songwriter, and he comes in and sues the restaurant. So there's that component. The other tragic part about this is these shows were canceled Saturday and Sunday last minute, which means there were a lot of people whose livelihood was counting on that show tonight. People who work on the crew, people who work at the venues and concessions, restaurants that are in close proximity to the venue. So a lot of people's livelihood got hit that night. So there's probably people that would say, well, this is a good thing. Good for Burton. Good for the songwriters. Maybe. But this is one of those things I look at and say, based off of everything I've learned, this is a road to hell is paved with good intentions type of thing. You think you did something good, but the consequences, they ripple out. And there's another component that I want to throw out here for you to think about, which is founding drummer Gary Peterson. I believe is the longest tenured member in the band, 60 years. And there were a number of years there, lean years, where he was the one that kept the legacy going. And when I was receiving all the hate mail from Burton's followers, there were a number of people that made the comment that Gary is just a drummer. That's all he is. He's just a drummer. As if to say a drummer brings no quantifiable value to a band other than to to be a beatkeeper, that they don't contribute to the vibe, the sound, the success of the band. And I really struggle to accept that as an argument, especially, again, in this case. And when you look at songs like American Woman, where his name's right there with songwriting credits. So to be able to tell somebody like Gary that after 60 years, your contribution has zero value, there's just something about that doesn't feel right, especially when you consider that they've put out 2 new albums in the last few years, Plenda More in 2023, incredible album. You've heard me talk about it. Every song on that album at this point now has a high-quality music video associated with it. They've been putting a really strong effort into getting the music out there, developing a new fan base with this new music. I feel like they're trying to do all the right things, but nonetheless, that's my opinion. So you might say, well, Dean, it sounds like you're a fan. And you know what? I am a fan. I'm not going to apologize for it either, because the album is great. And if you've had the opportunity to see the band live, they're a lot of fun, a lot of energy. I think they're a great addition to the catalog and to the legacy of the band. But I'll tell you this, too. I'm also a very long-time fan of the classic Guess Who. I have been since my teenage years. I've also been a fan of Burton Cummings for a very long time, and have talked about him over the years as being one of the big reasons that I love the Guess Who, because he could write and sing rock. He could also write and sing very soulful ballads. I think he's a very underrated singer. So, yeah, I'm a fan. Kind of a fan in a very tough position right now, because he took one of my posts, took a couple seconds out of it, twisted it, and represented it to his followers completely out of context, triggering them to attack me, which wasn't cool. But I'm still a fan, and I'll still promote him and talk about how much how incredible of a singer that I think he is. But yes, I am a fan of the new Guess Who too, and I think anybody that would just back off and stop trying to force this band to go back to being the lineup they were when it was 1971, and they just listen to the new music and give it a shot, I think you'll like it too. Now, I don't know what's really going on here. I don't have all the factual details, so I'm waiting to see, like so many other people are. I will say that I don't agree with this. I don't agree with what Burton is doing. I think there's probably a better solution to appease all parties, but this is his choice. And I don't know, we're just going to have to see how it works out from here. I do know there's also other bands watching this very closely, so there is a risk of more live music falling silent. This is my opinion, though. Let me know your thoughts.